Sid and Marty Krofft, in the mid-70s, were already famous puppeteers, character designers, had worked on numerous TV shows, and even created live shows. There was one medium they were looking to break into, though: theme parks. They planned their own whimsical and highly themed indoor amusement park in Atlanta, Georgia, as part of the large CNN complex. The park had multiple floors of colorful rides and interiors, all connected by the world's longest escalator. There was a giant carousel filled with mythical creatures, a pinball-themed dark ride, where each ride vehicle was the pinball. The bottom floor was forest-themed, and had a live show with Krofft characters performing in a woodland theater. There were even some animatronics throughout the park, such as a jump-roping gorilla and a little jumping bird you could see from the stairwell. There were also many vendors in small sections of the park where people could simply congregate. The whole idea of the park was to bring people together, Sid told The Catalyst in an exclusive interview March 30th. It's not like you were wandering around with just your friends. Everybody was having a huge party, and people got to talk together and go get on the rides together, and you met people there. That was an important factor of the park. Every part of the park was built in Los Angeles, and had to be trucked to Atlanta to be installed in their new space. With all this effort and guests eager to check out the new park, surely it would be a huge success. The park opened on May 26th, 1976, to huge fanfare and national press. Visitors flooded in for the grand opening. But, despite how beautiful and entertaining the park seemed, guests noticed one thing. It didn't have enough attractions to warrant an entire day's visit. To quote Dr. Dana White, "People were thinking of it as a full-day family experience, but it only took a couple hours. It wasn't worth the money or the drive." The park closed after a pitiful 6 months of being open, and the state of downtown Atlanta was blamed on the failure by the brothers. Atlanta was going through some changes and was in a bit of a rough period. However, a more likely explanation was that families instead opted to go to Six Flags over Georgia, a much larger park that was comparable in price. The Kroffts still had years ahead of them in their creative journey. This was before Pryor's Place and DC Follies. They hadn't even sued McDonaldland or NSYNC yet. So in the coming years, they ended up being commissioned for one medium that was still entirely untouched to them: an animatronic restaurant. The Kroffts had briefly worked with animatronics before. As mentioned, their theme park had some. They also played a part in Whimsy Works, a playful snack shop and retail space that opened in a mall in California that had some animatronic displays. But this was in the late 70s and before Chuck E. Cheese created the idea of the classic animatronic pizza place. So going into the 80s, the Krofft Company was hired to design and make something to rival this newfound restaurant fad that was seemingly becoming the next big thing. We don't know much about the founder of the restaurant, but he was a local businessman out of Anaheim, California. He wanted to create a new concept to rival the Pizza Time theaters that were taking over the country, especially California. Krofft Studios took on the project, and hired a new face to start working on the characters: Ken Forsse. Ken was a very prolific artist and engineer, who was most famous for later creating Teddy Ruxpin.
Hello, Ryan.
Oh, Teddy! That's a Teddy Ruxpin.
He had a background working with audio animatronics. Ken got his start at Disney, having a career in the Imagineering department there that spanned across 10 years, and led to him working on animatronics from some of the most famous rides, and even him co-founding the Haunted Mansion. If you've ever taken a look at the tombstones at the mansion, the one titled Nicksorf is a tribute to him, as it's his name spelled backwards. Sort of. He first came in contact with Sid and Marty not too long after he left Disney, in the early 1970s. They were in the planning stages of their future amusement park, and they wanted Ken to design a haunted house walkthrough. He was hired on and spent 18 months designing the elaborate attraction. Although there's no photos of it, we have many pictures of the hand-built scale model, so we know what it looked like. This didn't appear to just be a Haunted Mansion ripoff. It was its own more realistic haunted house filled with what appears to be ghosts and special effects. It's assumed that Ken went off to do other projects for a while, before being hired on again in the early 80s to help build characters for the new pizza concept. And what he helped create turned out to be unique, to say the least.
Hi there! In case you don't already know us, my name is Benny, and this is JD.
Hey!
At this time, we want to do a little rock and roll.
The restaurant was called Pizza Productions. It had 3 stages of characters, and they all were unique and designed well. They didn't appear to just be copying Chuck E. Cheese or the Country Bear Jamboree like many shows. On center stage, there was an anteater playing the piano, called JD. On top was a beaver named Benny. On stage left, there was a jungle scene and a monkey playing the electric guitar.
Hey, JD, how'd you like to get your piano and yourself down from on top of the roof? You wake up in the morning, you hear the ding-dong ring. Ding-ling.
This monkey looks very similar to the one that was on display at the Krofft amusement park, so perhaps Ken did some additional animatronic work for them when he was building the haunted house. On stage right was a forest scene, and it had a banjo-playing raccoon and an accordion-playing bird.
On the great Atlantic Ocean, on the wide Pacific shore, saw the queen of flowing rivers, mighty mountains by the score. She's long and tall and handsome, she's loved by one and all. She's a modern combination called the Wabash Cannonball.
This clip comes from a documentary about Ken, and it plays while it very briefly describes his work with the Kroffts.
Whoa, we ought to get a job. Mama don't allow no bad women here. If Mama don't allow no bad women here. She wouldn't allow me to collect spiders or snakes.
And it is the only piece of media proving the existence of this restaurant at all. I am serious. I started off searching the newspaper archive for opening dates or advertisements or even classified ads for the restaurant. And there's nothing. No single mention. It was allegedly in Anaheim, California, so I searched there. And even broadened my search to the whole US. There's other restaurants called Pizza Productions, but none of them are the same as this one. Then I tried searching on Facebook. Any mention or memory from anyone who may have gone to it or worked there. The only mention of it in a post I found is from my friend, asking if anyone remembers it from a few years ago. There are a handful of insightful comments though, like this one of someone who remembers helping them move out. Then my friend Kevin asks which location. Like maybe there were 2. And he doesn't even remember making this post, so I have no idea if some source said there was a restaurant in West Covina, too. Lastly, going on to Google to find any sort of public record, any sort of mention anywhere, is completely fruitless. There's one mention of this address having a place called Pizza Productions, but I couldn't find anything at that address in the newspaper archive before 1990 and after 1966. There's one theory that maybe this restaurant never even opened. Maybe this recording is done at the Krofft Studio, and the funding ran out. Maybe the characters were repurposed for other things. But we do have one account from an industry professional who actually lived close by the restaurant, and even visited it several times. An employee of AVG, a large animatronic company throughout the 80s and 90s, has described this place before on the phone when talking with other fans. His recollection is a bit vague, but he remembers going and seeing the animatronics that were running off Apple computers. The beaver character too would apparently have an attitude and run off the stage, probably when the curtain was closed. He also remembers roughly which streets the building was at, which is where the rough location in that post earlier comes from. It was most likely on Euclid Street and Catella Avenue. Now, as for the opening. We know this place took inspiration from Chuck E. Cheese, so it probably would have to open in 1980 at the earliest. Locations existed starting in 1977. But 1980 is when things started to really take off. Showbiz came onto the scene, many people started realizing they could imitate and create their own. Most imitation restaurants opened between 1982 and 1983, but being in California, they could have been a bit early. Ken left to go work on other projects in 1983 at the latest, and we know he did some animatronics for a dinner theater in November of that year. So most likely it opened within 1981 and 1982 if I had to piece it together. And that is about where it ends. The reason I focus so much on the Krofft amusement park and Ken's other work is because there just isn't any sort of historical footprint for pizza productions existing. I wanted to try and share about what was known, though. A lot of entertainment history like this gets lost to time, even stuff made by famous people. The Sid and Marty Krofft amusement park is very scarcely documented, despite them being extremely well-known pop culture icons. Ken Forsse's early work is barely documented too. I got the information about the haunted house from a Haunted Mansion fan blog, where they tell about how a couple documented this walkthrough attraction kind of by accident. They were out for a walk when they met Professor Jan Forsse, Ken's wife, and their talk led to them eventually going over to her house. Ken was sick in bed and didn't meet with them, but they were showed the scale model of the haunted house by Jan. This was pretty much the only proof of the attraction's existence, and had they not gone over and taken detailed photos of the model, no one may have ever known about it. Jan tried to find a museum to donate the model to back in 2013, but no one was interested. She even put it on eBay and had not a single offer on it. As of 2022, though, it was donated to Penny Pickle's Workshop, a children's workshop in Temecula, California. As for the old animatronics in the World of Sid and Marty Krofft, they have a happy ending as well. Well, at least one of them does. After the park closed, it remained vacant for years. The area was then repurposed to be CNN Studios. A lot of the infrastructure was torn out, and a salvage team came through and took what they could. A fan visited the location in Atlanta, seemingly while they were in an abandoned part of the complex, and got a photo of them in a rough state. Years later, they were being held in a storage room after the salvagers took them, and he was able to buy the green bird. And look at him, he's in great condition. So that's where the story ends. I'm glad it had a bit of a lighthearted ending, and some of the stuff tangentially related to the story was able to be archived and saved. I think someday more information about this restaurant will appear, it just needs time. And maybe by making this video, someone out there who has some sort of documentation on it will be inspired to go dig it up and share it with the world. You never know.